Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustments public hearing for Thursday, December 9th, 2021. We have a couple of before the announcements, will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance will be our first item. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a couple of announcements to make. If you are in possession of a cell phone or some other type of electronic paging device, we ask that you put it in the silent mode at this time. Also, please note that all testimony is being tape recorded for the record, and if you're going to speak, we ask that you state your name and your address first for the record, and then go ahead with your input after you've been recognized by the chair. Members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, one member at large, and one member appointed from the Planning Commission. I'll give a brief overview of how our meeting works this evening. First, I'll read the variance request, and that will open the public hearing. And when I'm reading your request, we ask that the applicant or their representative come forward and sit at the next to where the microphones are. And the Environmental Services staff will then provide a brief overview of the request, the staff report, and report on any correspondence that's been received regarding the request. The applicant or the representative will then be asked to give their input. Once the applicant or representative have provided their testimony, the board will discuss the request and then ask questions of staff or the representative. Following that, I will ask if there is anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this request. If you are wishing to speak, we ask that you come to the podium and then state your name and address and then give us your input. Once all of that testimony has been completed, I'll ask the board members for a motion to close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, there'll be no more input from the applicant, the audience, or environmental staff unless they're recognized by the chair or if one of the board members asks to have some type of clarification. Our first items this evening is to approve the minutes. And I think we'll do one vote, but I'll ask if there's any changes or additions to the 3 different dates. Are there any changes or additions to the meeting minutes for September 23rd? Seeing none, is there any additions or corrections to the meeting minutes for September 27th? Seeing none, we'll move on. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes for October 28th? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from all 3 of those meetings.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous, approved our minutes. Our first regular item for this evening is to consider a request from Frank Illy on behalf of Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores Incorporated, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, from sections 5.3A of the Stearns County Recreational Camping Area Ordinance 187 to allow transient RV parking sites that are less than 2,000 square feet in area. The said ordinance requires transient sites to be 2,000 square feet or more. The affected property is Lot 1, Block 1 of Rockville Crossing, Section 35, Track 124 North, Range 29 West of the City of Rockville. And the property address does not have a number at this time, but is on Crossing Drive, Rockville, Minnesota. And you are our applicant?
Yes, I'm Frank Illy, 10601 North Pennsylvania, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
All right, and we'll be back to you in just a few minutes.
Okay.
All right, staff members, if you could please give us your report. First, though, we'll do we were not to go on site, but some of us might have just been driving on the road in that area. So how many people actually, saw or are aware of where the site is? Okay, all but Dave. All right, thank you. And staff?
Good evening, Madam Chair. I am Mark Lateral, the Environmental Services, Environmental Health Supervisor for Environmental Services. With me this evening is Sarah Cavelli, one of the Environmental Health Specialists. Sarah's here to present the item to the board this evening.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. The applicant is requesting a variance from section 5.3 regarding lot size of the Stearns County Camping Area Ordinance 187 to install to accommodate up to 6 RVs in the auto area of the site. The applicant is asking for a variance from the 2,000 square foot minimum requirement for RV parking stalls according to Minnesota Rule 4630.0400, mobile home and recreational camping vehicle rule, a spacing section So the background, Stearns County is the local health authority in Rockville for the food, lodging, and pool licensing inspection programs. Environmental Services, Environmental Health Division has the authority. The authority is granted through the state delegation agreement with the Minnesota Department of Health. So these are not zoning regulations. They're public health. The ordinance 187 requirements, section 2.12 recreational camping area, states that whether a property is privately or publicly owned, sites used daily, nightly, weekly, or longer for the accommodation of 5 or more recreational camping vehicles, free of charge or for compensation, is to be licensed. And section 5.3 lot size states that sites are designated as transient sites shall have a minimum of 2,000 square feet. The alternatives proposed: 1, reduce the number of RV camping sites to 4, therefore the area would not be subject to licensure. 2, to increase the 6 RV sites to 2,000 square feet. And Madam Chair, there was no correspondence received regarding this request, and that is all I have for the board.
Bonnie Mossman, Chair. I just have one question, just for clarification. On the staff report, it indicates 6, but on the application, it says 5. So I just want to clarify that it is 6.
Yes, that was amended. The application should have stated 6.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Then if our applicant could share with us their thoughts.
Sure. So we just started doing these RV parking hookups this year in 2021 as another convenience. We have a lot of RV customers that come to our stores, and we already have a separate fuel pump for them. We sell some RV-based goods in the store, and then we came up with the idea to actually allow them to stay the night and have a full hookup if they want. We have 7 of these open now. This is what we call a Model 3, and that just means that they are RV hookups in the car parking area. We will also be building Model 2s and Model 1s, which are their own separate RV parks, but that's not, we didn't have the land here to do that. We see these as in this location as one-night stays. Most of these Model 3s in the car parking area would be one-night stays. And the reason that we want 6 and not 4 is to offer more spaces for the customers. If we have, it just gives them more opportunities to stay. And then the reason that we didn't shrink the sites down, didn't expand the sites more, this cost us about 22 car parking spaces, and we didn't want to lose any more because there's a finite area, as you can see on the site. You can also see the buffer to the right side of our car parking area, those are regulated wetlands, so we couldn't really expand that direction either. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So this area denotes the wetlands, the regulated wetlands. So did these up here. And so this is the spot where we thought it might be best. It's near the dog park. What we've learned in our short time of being involved in the RV park business is that people bring more pets than kids with them. So our dog parks are becoming very important to us, and we're going to have dog washes at the Model 2s and Model 1s, which doesn't apply to this location. But so it's another way for us to utilize space and offer another service and make a little money in the process. And we've already had several people stay at our other locations that are open. They had planned to stay somewhere else for the night, and then they were gassing up, and they looked over and saw the parking spaces, and so they just stayed with us. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And over the next, like I said, we have 7 of these open. What I didn't say is 4 of those open today. So we opened 4 stores today, which is not normal. But over the course of the next 12 months, we hope to have 30 or 40 of these, and then we will have kind of a network around the country, and people will know that Love's has RV hookups at a lot of locations. Right now, this is really in its infancy, so we're just trying to get this going.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? One question I have right away, this will strictly be RV, it won't be like tractor trailer, semi parking available, or?
That's correct. The tractor trailers are all in this area. And we will have signs, directional signs that say trucks this way, autos and RVs that way. And there's a directional sign here, another one here, you can actually kind of see it, and another one here.
Okay.
We try very hard to keep trucks and cars separate for obvious reasons, and the RVs and the cars usually occupy the same place because they both get gas, but you can also see how we've put all the RV parking spaces together, so they're not spread out amongst the car parking.
Okay, other questions?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, question for the applicant. I was going to ask you if you had data on basically nightly usage and how often you're at capacity with other locations. Based on what you shared, probably not extensive data at this point. But being it's a proof of concept at this point you guys are investing in, do you have any feedback on how it's gone at other locations and what kind of capacity you're seeing at the 3 you do have open?
Yes, and it's so Guthrie, Oklahoma was the first one, and that's because it's 30 miles from our corporate office. And that was a retrofit. The store has been there a long time. We actually went in and put these parking places there. We have not been, that has 8 parking places. We have not been full on any nights, but we've had 5 on 3 different nights, I think. We've been full on a location with 5 parking spaces. We try to get 6 at a minimum. That location is Bates City, Missouri. Basically, before we opened up Guthrie, these sites, there would have been a bigger variance that I'd be asking for because our sites were only 15 feet wide. These are 25. And we learned in Guthrie that when people put out their canopies and their bump outs, 15 feet is too close together. We also learned to stop using curbs and gutter, and we learned a few things from Guthrie. So Bates City has been full. I don't know the number of nights, but it's been open for over a month, and it's probably been full for 4 or 5 nights. But somebody has stayed there almost every night. And again, this is when we get this network going of 20 or 25 or 30 locations, it'll be more well known. We don't have any billboards yet. We aren't on the blue DOT logo signs yet. Those things will make a big difference as well. So the numbers I can report to you are pretty paltry right now. But.
Fair enough. No, appreciate the response.
Okay, other questions? All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this request? Okay, seeing none. Yes, the applicant, if you have something more you'd like to say.
Could I just add one more thing that I
Yes.
meant to say? I understand we're asking for a variance, and I understand what the regulation is. I just want to point out the obvious, that this is not, I believe the ordinance was written for what I would call an RV park. These are just RV hookups, but it does apply to the ordinance because of them being RV parking spaces with utility hookups. But I just want to point out that the intention or the use here is very different from a standalone RV park.
Okay, thank you. Board, are we ready to close the public hearing? Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, Jason Cronin will make a motion to close public hearing.
Do you have a second?
Dave Gamrad, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to findings. Okay, number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, recreational vehicle camping is allowed within the zoning district.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Anyone opposed to yes for number 1? Or have additional comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone. Again, the applicant mentioned it. I also have had the same viewpoint on this, is that the ordinance is in place for the orderly development of RV parks, and then making sure that there's obviously not people on top of each other and things are done in the right way. This is not intended to be a multi-night stay. I would just look at the site plan again that further supports that. You're not setting up a weekly recreational stop right on the corner of I-94 and 23, which is where this is. But so with that being stated, I do believe it's in harmony with the purpose of the ordinance.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Any additional comments? Anyone opposed to yes for 2? Seeing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, one more time. I believe it is consistent under the business goals. There's a few of them that could apply. I would go with just number 1, increasing the county's regional prosperity by being globally competitive and a business-friendly region.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Any additional comments or anyone disagree? Seeing none, I'll mark that as unanimous, yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe the type of business that they're offering and the convenience of being able to pull over overnight is reasonable.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Any additional comments or anyone disagree? Hearing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane again. I believe because of the size of their footprint, if they had more room, they would expand it, but the site limitations allow them to squeeze in that amount of parking that are still wide enough to can be okay for the people, but not wide enough to meet the goal of a trailer park.
And I'd also like to say, you know, this type of endeavor is something that's kind of brand new, and so it's not part of our ordinance. And so I think it's reasonable what they're requesting. We have a yes for number 5. Is there anyone that has additional comments or disagrees with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad. This won't change anything. I think that many times I've been camping and traveling on the highway, and many times we've stayed at a Walmart or some other place just to spend a few hours to rest. And this will allow people to get off the highway when they're tired and rest. So I think it's good.
Probably add to road safety.
Yeah.
So we have a yes for number 6. Anyone opposed to yes for number 6? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, I don't believe economics were a part of this decision.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes, and we are now ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I'd make a motion we recommend approval or approve the request for the variance from section 5.3 of Stearns County Camping Areas Ordinance number 187 to install full hookups to accommodate up to 6 RVs in the auto area of the site.
And Jacob Hawk, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll do roll call on the remaining members. Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So motion carries. And good luck with your new endeavor.
Thank you all very much.
Our next item on the agenda is to consider a request from David and Brandy Lashinsky of Avon, Minnesota, from Section 6.9.5D of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave as constructed a new feedlot structure less than 50 feet from a property line for a greater than 10 animal unit feedlot. The said ordinance requires a setback of 50 feet from the property line from an animal feedlot that is registered for 10 animal units or more. The affected property is 18.56 acres of the east half of the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter, Section 1, Track 125 North, Range 30 West of Avon Township. The property address is 14279 County Road 52, Avon, Minnesota. And you are?
Brandy Lashinsky, 14279 County Road 52, Avon.
All right, we'll be back to you in just a few minutes. If we could do a show of hands of those who were able to visit the site. And all members were able to visit the site. Then if our staff could give us their report, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the request is to leave a open lot arena that is located on the property line for a feedlot that's 10 animal units or more. The property is 18.56 acres in Section 1 of Avon Township and zoned A40. The request is to remain having the open lot / arena 0 feet basically on the property line, which is 100% deviation from the required 50-foot setback. The variance request was reviewed by Environmental Service Department wetland staff. There is some type 1 wetlands near the southeast property line. The Stearns County Ordinance 439 does not require a setback for type 1 wetlands. The applicant is proposing 112-foot by 158-foot open lot / arena, which is listed as number 3 on the feedlot footprint map included in your packet, and then additionally a 2,185 square foot open lot, which is labeled number 4. The requested 10 animal units would consist of 2 slaughter steers and heifers and 8 horses. The feedlot was originally registered on June 11th of 2012 for 10 animal units and has remained active and registered since then. All the surrounding parcels are zoned A40 as well. We did a compliance inspection on site by staff on November 22nd of 2021, and the site was deemed non-compliant with the Stearns County Ordinance 439 because there was not a permit for the expanded open lot / arena area because of the setbacks not being met. The feedlot is compliant for water quality discharge standards. Avon Township, Star Post, Cold Spring Record, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. I have not received any correspondence in regards to this request this evening, and your alternatives are listed in your packet as well, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go to the applicant.
I don't believe I have anything to add unless you guys have any questions, I guess, on why it's there.
That's fine. We can come back to you if we have questions.
Okay.
Board members, if you have any questions for the applicant or staff.
Madam Chair, I have one for the applicant and I guess staff. What do your neighbor, Christina Mayberry, have you spoken with them or have they corresponded with either or?
No, they have not. We see them all the time working in their field and picking rocks and now planting this last year, all their grass and stuff they planted for CRP, and they've never had any problems or said anything to us.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, question for applicant. How long has the current arena been in place?
Less than a year or maybe 1 year.
Madam Chair, one more question. Now, I was having a tough time trying to determine, how was that fencing put in along that eastern edge? It looked like
Like
there
where the
along
property line ends?
Yeah, what does that fencing consist of?
It's just barbless wire.
It's barbless wire right
Yep.
now and just on steel fence posts, right? If
Correct,
I remember
T-posts.
seeing it. Okay.
And then halfway down there is a railroad tie for support.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from staff, from board members? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on this application? Oh, just a minute. Dave?
Madam Chair, is this going to be just an exercise arena or is it going to be housing for cattle?
No, it's just exercise. It's not housing any animals at all. It is kind of a break between two pastures because I had a stud for a while too, so I always like to keep one pasture totally separate so the horses won't touch at any point. So no one will ever be housed there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment? All right, seeing none, are we ready to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay.
Jason Arnold, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed, and we will go to findings.
Madam Chair, a couple more questions. Sorry.
Go ahead.
For the applicant, is there something magical about the dimension? Because if you're going to grant a variance, and honestly, I don't have a major problem because of where it's located, but anytime you're making a deviation from those setbacks, it's a precedence, and it's always good to have a justification for it. So my question would be, is there something magical to the dimensions, or could that fence just be moved over?
For exercising the horses and doing the barrel racing and the circles and everything, we do need it wider than the 50 feet that it would have to be brought down to if we were to move it.
Okay. And so basically, the way you're currently using it, you need all that square footage. If you're shrinking it at all, it impacts the use of the arena in general.
Right. If we were to have to shrink it at all, the whole thing would have to move, and the only other place it could move would be where my neighbor is currently planting.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready now for findings? All right, number 1. And this isn't after the fact, so the questions are slightly different than what we've heard on the previous. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I believe it's a A40 zone and this type of use is allowed.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Any comments or anyone opposed to yes? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, the official controls setbacks are put in place to prevent land conflict challenges that could arise. In this instance, you've got no residential dwellings within 700 feet. You've got basically field that butts up to it. So conflict in this case is minimal with this intended use. So therefore, as much as I don't like deviating from setbacks, I just really don't see it being an issue in this particular instance.
All right, we have a yes for number 2.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add as well, Mike Kane. Just the fact that the neighbor isn't here, hasn't provided any kind of a letter against it, says a lot as well, because it's touching their property line. If they had an intended use, a building going up at some point in time, they would have reached out or would have touched bases with the neighbors right away and addressed this issue a year ago. So yes.
Okay. We have 2 yeses for number 2. Any of the other members have comments or opposed to yes? All right, seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan? And state the goal or objective that it would meet.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I believe it is. If you look under the agricultural goals, number 3, retaining areas with highly valued agricultural land or economically viable animal agricultural operations. This arena could be relocated on the property, but it would require putting it on otherwise good tillable property. It would utilize the property in less capacity than it currently is due to changing out the egg.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Any additional comments? Or any, do you have additional
Madam
comment?
Chair, Dave Cameron, my comment would be is, in this instance, it's not going to be much different than a pasture that adjoins somebody's tillable land, because it's not housing cattle all the time, it's just an exercise area. So it's not going to be something of a problem I can see.
Yeah, and I would think too, in the future, if an issue would come up, it could be solved relatively quickly with just a row fence. All right, so we have a yes for number 3. Anyone up? Or let's see, or was that 4? That was 3. All right. Anyone opposed to yes for number 3? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the official controls?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I think you could actually cite Dave's previous response to this is really a pasture that's being utilized for exercise, and so it's very reasonable considering in an egg zoning district.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner? Well, I would think that the alternative, as Jason had said, the alternative would be to be using tillable cropland. And I think this it's unique to the situation in order to try to preserve tillable cropland as much as possible. So I would say yes. Is there any other comments or anyone opposed to yes? And we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I don't believe the character is going to change if we move the fence 50 feet or not.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Any additional comments? Anyone opposed to yes? Mark that as unanimous. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jacob Hawk, economics were not a factor in this discussion.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Anyone disagree with that? Then we'll mark it as unanimous yes, and we are ready for a motion.
Dave Gamrod, I'll make a motion to grant variance.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I'll second.
All right, roll call on the remaining. Jake?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So the motion carries. And thank you for being with us this evening. The next item on our agenda is to consider a request from Martin and Marcia Rain from Burnsville, Minnesota, from sections 10.2.11A2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a residential dwelling addition ahead of the established building line. The said ordinance requires a residential dwelling addition to be constructed landward of the established building line. The affected properties is Lot 3 and the south half of Lot 4 and part of the vacated landing street. The town site of Spring Park, Section 34, Track 127 North, Range 34 West of Sauk Center Township, and the property address is 44776 Saukview Drive, Sauk Center, Minnesota. And you are?
Martin Ryan, 3306 Williams Drive, Burnsville.
All right, and we'll be back with you in just a moment.
Thank you.
And board members, with a show of hands, how many of you were able to visit the site? Okay, this appears everyone was able to visit the site, and now we can move to staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I just want to make note that the applicant's wife is on the webcast as well, so I don't know if that needs to be said or not, but I'll just throw that out there so she has a chance to talk if need be.
Okay, welcome, Marcia, and we'll be with you if you have comments in a little while.
Okay, thanks.
The applicants currently own lots 3 and 4 of the town site of Spring Park. The town site of Spring Park was platted in 1908. The tract contains approximately 22,635 square feet of lot area. Properties in an R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2020. 1990, there was a 34 by 24 residential dwelling that was permitted and constructed. 1996, a 24 by 24 detached accessory structure was permitted and constructed. Also in 96, there was a 10 by 10 100 square foot deck constructed. That was not mentioned on the permit, so it was constructed without a permit. In 2006, a 12 by 8 3-season porch was permitted and constructed on the property. The residential dwelling is serviced by an existing subsurface sewage treatment system. The compliance inspection was completed on the system and it was certified compliant. The proposed dwelling addition will slightly move the established building line towards the lake for the adjacent property owners. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Sauk Lake, which is classified recreational development. Sauk is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish. The residential dwelling is serviced by an existing subsurface sewage treatment system that was found compliant. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is approximately 14%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be approximately 15%. Sauk Center Township, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. If the variance is granted, you can determine if mitigation as recommended by Soil and Water Conservation District is appropriate. And we have no correspondence with regards to this request.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to the applicant.
First of all, the deck that was on there was 12 by 12. Not that it really makes any difference. When I applied for the permit, I really did realize that the sight line was there, and then it's only going to be about 36 square feet that I would be infringing on. Oh, sorry. It's only going to be about 36 square feet that we're really going to be infringing on. Right now, it's only going to be 36. Right now, what this is kind of deceiving because a storm came through, took out the roof, and so the roof trusses are all changed now. They're running the other way, and that's why when I did that, then I decided I wanted to put the addition on at that time, and I didn't realize that when I was doing that corner was reclipped. So that's basically what I have. And as far as water runoff, is there a picture of this one right here?
The actual photos shown.
Yeah, this one right here. This is where the deck is on there right now, and I'd be coming out this way and over 24 feet. And the roof has changed, so the water would be running down this way now. And right all the way around here, and it's all rock with the landscape fabric, and these stones right there actually acts as a buffer as well, as far as water runoff. I'm sorry. So I mean, that's all I really got. I mean.
All right, and we can come back to you if we have additional
Sure.
questions.
Yes.
Mrs. Rain, did you have comments that you wanted to make at this time?
Nope, I am good with what he proposed there, and like I said, that we changed the roof trusses so the water runs opposite of what the pictures show.
Okay, thank you. Board members have questions for the applicant or the staff members?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Jason Crone, quick question for staff. If the variance is granted, that doesn't do anything to change the current sight line. It doesn't go out to the newly accepted variance, does it? It stays at the old one?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, the addition will bring the building line out for adjacent properties like this property and this property, or, you know, if somebody wanted to build on the southern property, you want to go to the, that's okay. So their building line would affect this property because they would use this point right here and wherever the closest point is to the south of this property. Same would go for this property above here. You know, for this property, you're going to have the building line come out a little bit further from here and whatever the building line is there. It's obviously not increasing by a large amount, right, but there is a small amount of deviation that will be made and will allow people to get a little bit closer.
And that applies even if it's granted through a variance?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, a question for staff. If you scroll the picture up slightly, now actually the building on the bottom there is closer to the lake on the south side.
Corner, yep.
Yeah. If you would take and move that line back to the closest part to the lake, then that portion probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, the way the ordinance is written, it specifies that you have to use the closest corner to the property that's asking for the building line. So we have to use this corner, and we have to use, if you could move that up a little bit, Shelley, and we have to use the closest point of this one. in our determination of a building line. That's just how it's defined in our ordinance, and thus the reason he's needing the variance. I do agree with you, if we drew the line from here to their closest corner over there, it would then probably be behind the building line and might not need the variance. But unfortunately, that's not how our ordinance lays out the option for the building line.
Okay, and I just want to put into record some discussion that the applicant and I had. I had asked him about what if you moved the deck further over on the house so that it would be behind that building line, but there's an egress window there, and you couldn't move the deck over. So that wasn't an option for him, would be to move the deck over toward the north because there's an egress window that you couldn't cover.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I do want to point out that this is a home addition and not a deck that he's proposing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
But
All right, other questions?
Madam Chair, I got a question. I know Dennis isn't here, so I'm going to ask the question. Have you looked at the stormwater conservation district's plan, and do you agree with the layout of the water?
I do agree with parts of it, but like I was saying before, the rocks with the berm around the house, I mean, that's going to stop the water from rushing down to the lake. And it is all sand there because I've dug holes there. And the, can you go back to the conservation? Let's see. That one right there. That one right there. Sure. I believe it says, there it is. Okay. They're proposing this to be a no-mow zone here, or run the gutters on here. The gutters on the garage won't be a problem running out this way. Gutters on this side of the house wouldn't be a problem. Gutters on this side, my septic system's right there. So I don't know how I could gutter that off that way. The other thing is, it was stated in, there were supposed to be 35 feet from the high water mark is what they wanted. The way this is drawn, this is almost 45 feet from the high water mark. So this is a fire pit on a patio surface right here, and my steps going down to lake are right here. And I have 27 steps, and they're 16 inches long, which is almost 36 feet. So that puts me right to there. So I think this here is a little exaggerated. That's the only thing I have to complain about, what they're trying to say here as far as mitigations.
But you would be receptive to doing a plant buffer on the slope side? So
Definitely. My wife and I have already planned on, because this is we hang out here at the fire pit a lot. And with the grandkids, we've already talked about putting a hedge along here and along here. Because the little grandkids, they start running and they can't stop. I don't want them to run down the hill. So, and that was already in our works, except for we didn't get to it this year because we had the storm damage and we were trying to close the house up before it got too cold. And plus, also this hill here, right here, and over here, I don't want it to wash away either. And I have access to lots of hostas and daylilies that we planted a bunch in there already this last spring, and we plan on planting a lot more in there.
Oh.
Madam Chair, question for the applicant. What would be a distance if we were to put as part of the condition in granting the variance would work with your slope? You mentioned like what's drawn there is 45 feet, and I would tend to agree with you. That's probably excessive.
Right. Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to let this go as a no-mow zone around my fire pit is what I'm trying to say.
So if we were going to come off the lake shore, wherever the water edge is, if we were to specify X amount of feet of no-mow.
36 feet.
Okay. And we can just say 30 feet. I think
30 feet, yeah.
Just gives you room. I don't want someone to have to sit and measure it out. The point is, are we improving the lake shore? And it sounds like we will be. So.
Right.
Cool.
Thank you.
So you talk about those hostas and the daylilies. Is that really enough of a barrier to stop runoff there, do you think?
I think the root system on that, because they grow wild and you can't really kill them, and they multiply real fast, and then they hold the top surface of real well.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, no, this is totally up to you guys. The recommendation specifies a native plant buffer, and I will tell you that a hostas and daylilies are not native plants. Now, that doesn't mean you guys have to choose that it be a native plant buffer. It just could be leave the existing vegetation there grow. This is totally up to you. You guys, it will be up to you to place the condition if you choose to do so. Yeah. So, but I just want to point that out because what is there right now is not native plant buffer, so you're probably looking at adding a certain amount of money to the request if you go with the native plant buffer. So there's a difference between saying a native plant buffer versus just a no-mow buffer. No-mow, we look at that when it comes to permitting time as they just leave whatever's there grow, right? If you say native plant, it involves getting some sort of, probably a landscaper involved to meet with the property owners and determine, okay, what kind of native plants do you want to put on this slope? So I just want to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page here.
It's a good description, and I was going to say no mow, recognizing that. The point is it's not turf grass, which is the real tough thing on those slopes, and then what I was concerned with. So, yeah, it is different, but it's a lot better than mowing turf grass down on a slope.
And a question for staff then, if we designate that as a no-mow zone, that doesn't inhibit them from adding plants to that?
Definitely not. Definitely not. No mow would obviously just mean no lawnmower, which you can't probably do.
Right.
I'm guessing you guys probably use a trimmer when you want to cut it down right now.
Excuse me. I did trim a little bit of the grass this year because I was throwing wildflower seeds in there.
Sure.
And I wanted to see if they would germinate.
Sure. Sure. But again, that's up to you guys with regards to your conditions and, how you phrase that. So be cognizant of how you phrase it to make sure that it's what you really want there.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
So what are native plants? Can you give me examples?
I'm not a native plant specialist.
Okay. I'll take a shot.
Yeah, you can probably take.
So your native grasses and sedges, there's basically pollinator mixes. They have different blends, but like when it gets into grasses, you're talking like big blue stem, little blue stem, different Indian grasses. There are wetland plant grasses, deep-rooted prairie grasses that they include in these mixes, and honestly, they're pretty expensive mixes. That's one of the drawbacks to them. They also have pollinator blends in which you have your cone flowers and Joe Pye weed. There's a variety of different native plant species that are more in the flowering nature, but a variety of different mixes. They all have it takes a lot to get them established. But once they're established, then they're low maintenance after that. And something you can certainly research. If we listed it as a no-mow buffer, you could choose to do that. Once it's established, they are very, very low maintenance after that. But it does take some work getting them established, and it comes with a degree of cost.
The important thing about the natives is they have a lot deeper rooting system than your actual bluegrass or turf grass. Okay. That might only go down a couple of inches, where these native species tend to go down feet rather than inches. So that's why these types of mitigations are recommended, because they want to stabilize that slope.
Yeah. The other factor, though, and I'll leave it at this, if you do no mow, you are going to have shrub species pop in on slopes. You're going to get your dogwoods and things like that, and those also have extremely deep root systems that hold the soil in place. And so as long as you're not mowing it, Mother Nature will take care of it eventually. It's the mowing turf grass that doesn't last.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think then we are probably ready for, to close the public hearing.
So move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Hearing none. The public hearing is now closed, and we will move on to findings. All right, the request is to construct a 24 by 12 square foot or 288 square foot residential dwelling addition ahead of the established building line. Question 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the property is located, yes or no?
It's an R1 zoned area, and that is allowed in that area.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Is there anyone opposed to yes for number 1? We'll mark that as unanimous. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, the sightline ordinance is obviously another land conflict. You're trying to minimize the impact of neighboring properties to sightlines. In this particular instance, we are barely encroaching on that, and I think as Member Gammer had mentioned earlier, if you were to look at it differently than the way the ordinance is drawn, but draw the closest line between the buildings, this is not protruding far beyond the sight line of the buildings in general, just the way that the ordinance calls out that sight lines are determined.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Any additional discussion or anyone opposed to yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'll take a shot. I'm going to find this as we go with the condition that we talked about including as part of the variance. It would fall under the water mitigation efforts, and if someone found that specific, thank you, Lakeshore Living. Go ahead, you can rattle it off.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, under Lakeshore Living policy, number 2, encourage shoreline protections and restoration methods such as vegetative buffers. I believe if we incorporate that into our condition, then we will be doing that.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes for 3?
Thank you, Mike. I knew it exists. I've cited it enough times I just couldn't find it.
All right, seeing no additional comments or everyone seems to be in favor of yes, so we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair, Mike Hannigan, I believe it is reasonable to want to put in a good addition onto the house, especially after they've done some remodeling after storm damage to make it more of a permanent living facility.
All right, we have a yes for 4. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I think it's unique to the property and the fact that the current building was constructed, prior to some of these other controls and things that were put in place. So definitely unique to the situation.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Anyone have additional comments or disagree?
Madam Chair, I'd have a comment. I think because of the way the neighboring houses are configured, they're not figured completely square to the lake, that it probably would not needed an ordinance if they would have taken the closest part to the lake, which is not the way the ordinance is written, but it looks to common sense.
Okay. All right, we have then 2 yeses for number 5. Anyone disagree with yes for 5? We'll mark that as unanimous. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, I don't believe the character is going to change by putting this sealed-in porch. There's already a deck in the location, so the characteristics won't be changed by that much.
All right, we have a yes for number 6. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, economics were not discussed as part of this variance request.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Any additional comments or anyone disagree? We'll mark that as unanimous yes, and we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I make a motion we recommend approval of the variance for the construction of a 24-foot by 12-foot residential dwelling addition ahead of the established building line with the condition that the owner maintains a no-mow buffer 30 feet from the minimum of 30 feet, thank you, Mike, from the lake shore, the water's edge.
All right, and then were you going to have a condition about gutters or not?
Yeah, I was not making the gutter a condition.
All right.
Just
thought I would check since
yeah,
it had been a recommendation. All right, we have a motion with one condition. Do we have a second to that motion?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I'll second that motion.
All right, now do roll call on the remaining members. Mike?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So motion carries, and thank you for being with us this evening, and good luck on your project.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is to consider a request from Rick Schmidt, South Haven, Minnesota, from sections 9.9.9A1 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 and section 6.2.1P, Table M, of the Stearns County Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance 422 to construct a new dwelling and overhang on the existing foundation less than 10 feet from the side yard property line, less than 10 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tanks, and less than 20 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area. The said ordinances require a 10-foot setback to the side property line, a 10-foot setback to the subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tanks, and a 20-foot setback to the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area. The affected property is Lot 17 of Coes Augusta Shores, Section 11, Track 121 North, Range 28 West, Fairhaven Township, and the property address is 2691 Arrowwood Road, South Haven, Minnesota. And you are?
Rick Schmidt, 2691 Arrowwood Road, South Haven.
Thank you, and we'll be back to you in just a few minutes. If we could have a show of hands of how many people were able to visit the site.
I was previously there.
All right, either this time or at the previous application. All right, looks, Jake, did you raise it? Okay, so we have unanimous that everyone is able to visit the site. And then we'll move on to staff report.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As you guys are all probably aware, the applicant was in front of you on March of 2021. They had applied for and were granted a variance to construct a second-story addition and the currently proposed overhang. Upon starting the project, it was determined that the entire dwelling would need to be reconstructed up from the floorboards and foundation. Now, this property, as you mentioned, is on Lot 17 of Coes Augusta Shores. Coes Augusta Shores was platted in 1995. The tract contains a lot area of 19,630 square feet, according to the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 2020. Let's see. The property is in the floodplain and shoreland overlay district of Lake Augusta classified recreational development. Augusta is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. The subsurface sewage treatment system that services the dwelling consists of a septic tank and drain field that was certified compliant in 2020. I do want to mention that the applicant did go through the CUP process and was granted the CUP by the county board for the floodplain remediation requirements that he was required to do. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is approximately 24.9%. On the original request, there was some impervious that was required to be pulled up, and he has since done that. And so this request will remain at that 24.9%. Fairhaven Township, Clearwater River Watershed District, Lake Augusta Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And that is basically it. I mean, we've kind of gone through all the background information. I'm going to spare us the time. You guys all remember the property, so I'll let you have questions for the property owner if you do.
Okay, so we'll move on to the applicant. And in your response to us, if you could also kind of give us a overview or timeline of from when the builder said we can't do it the way you wanted to do it and to where you are today, because I did see there is some construction that's gone on there. So if you can include that in your response to us,
Yes.
of how this all came about.
Yes, we were told that it passed, everything went through. I am new to this. I thought I was good to go. I was going to hire a builder and decided I could general this myself cheaper and just hire contractors. Well, I thought I was able and good to go, but then since found out, and I quit building and I stopped. So I didn't want to get in any trouble, but we are in kind of, we purchased these SIP panels that are pretty expensive, and we're told need to go up right away also, because if they got warped laid around or something happened, they wouldn't warranty them. So that was kind of one of the things too, but we have stopped, haven't touched the house. We are on a time crunch though, because we have to have it done by a certain time.
Are those pre-insulated panels?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, is there questions that the board has of either staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair, quick question for staff. Basically, the reason this has to come back for a variance is because the plans of what was previously approved have changed because of the rotted out wood, right? I mean, basically it was previously we approved to go on top, but now the whole structure has to be rebuilt.
Correct. Madam Chair, members of the board, the original request was just for a second-story addition, the overhang, and a small little addition off of the front. So none of the building plans will be changing at all. He's just going to be building, or as you can see, that these were some of the pictures that were provided by the property owner. Thus, the reason they needed to basically rebuild the entire structure from the floor and the foundation up.
Which requires a different variance.
Correct, and that's a different request from what he originally asked for. At that time, it was just a second-story addition and that little front addition or on the roadside. And so that is why he had to come back to this board.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Is this something that the Duffy Engineering folks missed when they were out there, or is it something they didn't look at?
You couldn't see it at all until we started digging into kind of taking the house down. And I was out there and going around the house. I went, we can't leave this. We couldn't even put a new subfloor over it or nothing. And some of it was done with 2x4s, and you could actually pick up the floor just by doing this. It wasn't anchored down, and it needs to be done the right way. I couldn't build on this.
All right. And no additional questions? Are we ready for, we'll first ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this request.
I'll make a motion, Jason Crone, to close public hearing.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, McCain.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed, and we are ready to move on to findings. All right, and the variance request is to construct a 42 by 32 residential dwelling and a 24 by 6 overhang from the existing floorboards and foundation less than 10 feet from the property side yard, less than 10 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system sewage tanks, and less than 20 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area. Question number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, McCain, it is R1 zoned and new construction is allowed.
We have a yes for number 1. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark it unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, in this case, the official controls are dealing with setbacks, which all are there for a reason. However, in this instance, it's replacing an existing structure. Those setbacks are already, there's already been a variance granted to deal with some of those. So in this case, yeah, it's unchanged.
All right, we have a yes for number 2.
I'll make an additional comment, McCain. Just with the additional new building, it's actually going to be a better property because all the current codes of energy and everything will be, electric and plumbing will all be updated.
That's a great point.
So,
good point. Thank you. So we have 2 yeses. Is there anyone with additional comments or disagrees with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with a comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I believe it is under living goal. Number 3, support housing options that give people in all stages and of all economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes. Safe and stable being emphasized here.
Right. Right. Do we have any other comments? Anyone disagree with yes for number 3? Mark that as unanimous. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, McCain, I believe it is reasonable, especially when the applicant discovered a problem and addressed it correctly instead of covering it up.
All right. We have a yes for number 4. Anyone disagree with yes? Then we'll have a unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrod, this problem came when he found rotted footing, so he had to have a new variance to take a complete rebuild instead of just adding on. So I'd say it is.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. And does any additional discussion or anyone disagree with yes for 5? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. I'm going to say yes, it does, because it's basically the end result will be the same home that he was already once permitted for. So there really won't be any change. So we have a yes for number 6. Anyone additional comments? Anyone disagree? All right, we'll mark that unanimous yes. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, this is certainly not being done from an economic standpoint.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Any additional comments or disagree with yes? I'll mark that as unanimous yes, and we are now ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I make a motion. We grant the variance to reconstruct a 42 by 32 foot dwelling and a 24 by 6, 144 square foot overhang from the existing floorboards and foundation less than 10 feet from the side property lines and the subsewage treatment system tanks and less than 20 feet from the subsurface sewage treatment system soil treatment area.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the request. I'll do roll call on the remaining members. Mike?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
And I am also a yes, so motion carries. Thank you for being with us this evening. We feel badly for you for what you encountered in your construction project, but at least you can finish building.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Yes, we hope it's
Very.
uneventful. Okay. Where did it go? Here it is. The next item on our agenda this evening is to consider a request from Jeff and Linda Kemper of Melrose, Minnesota, from section 6.2.1A and 9.9.11 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a detached residential accessory structure that will exceed the maximum accessory building area allowed on a lot between a half and 0.99 acres and to exceed the maximum impervious lot coverage allowed on a property zoned R1. The said ordinance allows for a maximum accessory building area of 1,200 square feet on a lot between half an acre and 0.99 acres and allows a maximum impervious lot coverage of 25% on a property zoned R1. The affected property is lots 27 and 28 of Paradise Beach and Vacated Road, Section 31, Track 127 North, Range 33 West of Millwood Township, and the property address is 31074 Birch Valley Road, Melrose, Minnesota. And you are?
My name is Jeff Kemper. This is my wife, Linda. We're at 31074 Birch Valley Road in Melrose, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you, and we'll be back to you in just a couple minutes. With a show of hands, could I see who was able to visit the site? And all were able to visit the site. And now we'll go to the staff members' report.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own lots 27 and 28 and the vacated road of Paradise Beach. Paradise Beach was platted in 1949. The tract contains approximately 30,967 square feet, which is 0.71 of an acre. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2006. There are an existing 1,850 square foot residential dwelling with a 300 square foot three-season porch that were constructed in 1968 prior to the official controls. There is also a 432 square foot detached garage and a 288 square foot boathouse that were constructed in 1961 prior to the official controls. The residential accessory structure standards in the Shoreland Overlay District for lots 0.5 to 0.99 of an acre allows for a total of 2 buildings with a maximum sidewall height of 10 feet and a maximum building height of 16 feet, and the total cumulative area they occupy cannot exceed 1,200 square feet. The residential dwelling is serviced by a septic system that was certified compliant in November of 2020. The applicants provided a stormwater management plan that was designed by a licensed engineer. The plan includes gutters on the proposed structure to capture and deliver the stormwater from the structure to an infiltration basin that will be constructed on the east side of the structure. The plan at the time was currently incomplete, but that was approved as of today. The only thing we are waiting on yet, and we can make this a condition of the permit if needed, is we do not have a list of what the cost is going to be for this. And so with regards to the possibility of a financial guarantee, if that's something you guys would decide as a condition, we will get that at a later time for something like that. The property is in the shoreline overlay district of Big Birch Lake, which is classified recreational development. Big Birch is on the list of impaired waters for mercury and fish. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 30%. The proposed impervious lot coverage when the project is complete will be approximately 34%. Millwood Township, Big Birch Lake Association, Sauk River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. And we do have that stormwater plan. I guess a recommended condition would be that the stormwater management plan be implemented because this request is to be over the impervious lot coverage. Yeah, if it's granted, that would be the condition we would recommend.
I'd also like staff to clarify, now when it comes up with the 1,552 square feet, that it would be with the 3 accessory structures?
So there's a little bit of a caveat to this. Can I borrow that? Okay.
Because when I added it up, it didn't come to that.
So we have a boathouse here, okay? We have an existing garage, and we have the proposed. Now, the ordinance allows, because this home does not have attached garage, we allow them to have this structure would be considered their garage. And as long as that does not cover more than 900 feet, or 900 square feet, it does not have to be counted against their accessory area. We count it as a number of structure, but it doesn't get added to their accessory area. Does that make sense what I said there?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So the number of their accessory square footage is basically coming from the boathouse and this proposed structure. And they're needing the number variance because they have actually 3 structures instead of 2, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then my other question is, there's that little tiny building that's next to the garage. Doesn't that count?
That meets the requirement of what we call a water-oriented and doesn't require a permit, correct.
All right, thank you. It was just when I was adding up the
Does not
numbers.
count against their impervious, or not their impervious, does not count against their accessory area as well. So there's a lot of kind of in different things that you guys may not have heard before in this request.
Okay, that's why I thought I would, so it's in the record so that we all understand
Yep.
where the totals are coming from.
Correct. And we did not have any other correspondence with regards to this request at all.
All right, thank you. And then if we could move on to the applicant's comments?
Well, good evening. We're here to present to you, the board, our reasons why we feel we need these variances approved so we can build this accessory building. I realize that all of you were at the site, and there are a couple of photos that were shown of our shoreline. And we had shoreline management done a number of years ago, and they put cloth fabric underneath the riprap. Our surveyor looked at this and put it down as an impervious area versus a pervious. Because of the fabric, the cloth fabric, the water will drain through, it won't run off. So that's 615 square feet that he calculated for that area, which he put down as impervious, which is not. So those pictures are there for you. And the other thing that is kind of a setback for us is that driveway that feeds our neighbor's property. That concrete in there penalizes us, tar and concrete penalizes us because it's there for him to use, but it affects our area. So some of the reasons that we have for this building, Linda and myself are like everybody else. As we get older, we look for ways to maybe make our lives a little easier, to have our belongings accessible when we need them. And so right now in the fall of the year, the lawnmowers get loaded up and the lawn equipment, and it gets hauled to a storage facility. And the snow blower and the plow for the four-wheeler get loaded up and they're brought home. This is reversed in the spring. and this is an ongoing thing, and there again, you get older, it just makes things tougher to do. Another reason we have is over the past few years, since we've had a pontoon, twice it's been damaged in storage. And we feel that if we were able to keep this at home, we could better control these problems because we would have the room to store this versus a tight facility where they try and get as many vehicle or units in as possible to make the most money as they can. And then again, we have, security. Because it's there, we could maintain it, we could watch it closer, we could just do a better job of protecting our property. I also enjoy doing woodworking projects, and here again, with the lack of space, my power tools are stored in this facility, so when I want to do something, I have to go and get them. And this is 10 miles away, so you usually forget something, so you're making multiple trips where I could have everything here, and it would be, like I say, accessible. These are just a few of the reasons that, we've looked at. There's many more, but these are a few of them why we feel we should have this. And we've taken the steps required, to make it a workable project. The septic's been inspected, the property's been surveyed. We had a test hole dug to check for water level. A basin was designed, and it's been updated today, or it was approved today. So really all we need is your blessing or your approval for this so we can go ahead with the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board for either staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, quick question for the applicants. 40 by 30, is there magic to that size?
Well, we have a pontoon, we have a fishing boat. My pickup currently sits outside, and I have a vehicle that I use just for work. But anyway, so with the other stuff that I have stored, like power tools and power tools, lawnmowers, whatever, we feel a need for this size garage.
And with that size, you'll be able to get everything, let's call it those additional items that otherwise be out in the yard or something being stored inside that building?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I asked, like, if you went to 40 by 21, you would fit within the square footage requirement, but that's a lot of square feet. You're losing 350 square feet in that. So if that makes a difference, I'd be more compelled to say, yeah, build everything to get it inside versus trying to fit underneath that square footage.
That would not give us the room that we would need. We'd still have to rent something, and there again, we'd be basically in the same boat we are now, running after stuff. So that's why we looked at, everybody likes to have more, and calculating the spaces we need and to get everything in, I feel this is probably about, the smallest area we could go with.
Okay.
And just a question, the boathouse?
Yes.
What are you currently using that for as far as storage?
Well, a number of years ago, when
it was my parents' home, and we bought a speedboat. We bought a speedboat quite a few years ago, and my dad built that boathouse. So there's a speedboat in there that can stay all year, and our maintenance guy comes out and winterizes it right there, so it doesn't have to go on a trailer and go anywhere. So that's what that boathouse is for.
Okay, so it was built that size to accommodate the speedboat.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Question for staff, or maybe applicants, do you know how big Steve's building is?
The size of the house?
No, his
garage.
His garage.
Originally, it was probably when the previous owner had it, and they added on to it. I'm guessing it was like a 24 by 30, and the previous owner added another, say, 12 to 16 feet on it. So it's probably about a 24 by 40.
Yep. Okay. I was just trying to look at comparables in the area. So thank you.
Because I know to the left of us are
Zeitz's?
No, Steve Thielen's. The other two properties to to the left of that screen have garages also.
Yep.
In similar design.
Cool. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, question for staff. Are the rocks considered non-permeable?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, riprap with fabric actually should not count against his impervious. Now, when I just recalculated that, that would put their current impervious at 28%, and proposed then would be at 32% when we take out the riprap from that impervious calculation.
If you're going to recalculate, if you could, you're good at calculating this stuff. If you were to take out the concrete that acts as the neighbor's driveway, what would that take it down to?
When we calculated that in the office, Madam Chair, members of the board, it came down to about 1,400 square feet that would be taken off of that impervious. So that and the 600 is about 2,000 square feet less. And let me get you if you're looking for that calculation, let me grab it quick here.
Quick math would tell me that's going to get it far under 25, though. It still won't make it 25?
7379 divided by 3967. 23%.
23, okay.
That's taking out, obviously, the driveway for the neighbors. That's going to the neighbor's property.
Right.
So I have a question on that. So if the concrete is removed, you still have a gravel basin underneath of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so is that still considered?
That still is considered impervious. I don't think that what is.
No, that's not.
Okay.
What I'm
Mr.
looking
Crone
at,
is
okay,
asking.
so ordinances are put in place to try to prevent land conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of reasons. That's one big reason. The other is to preserve, natural systems, and a lot of reason for these ordinances. But you sometimes when it comes to variances, you've got to do a balancing act. You could pull out that concrete. That would create a lot of conflict, which would defeat the purpose of a lot of these ordinances. So that's why I was asking.
Okay, no, that's fine.
All right. Other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, question for staff. Because the neighbor enters his property through your driveway?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The neighbor, is he high in, lot coverage?
Madam Chair, members of the board, just looking at it, my guess is he's
Way over.
probably pretty close to his 25. I can't give you an accurate estimate because I haven't done his impervious, but it's probably pretty close. If you look at the hardscapes on his property versus the hardscapes off of the applicant's, he probably has even more hardscape, I would guess. Yeah. His property is a little bit bigger from what I can tell, just the way that road kind of goes at a diagonal rather than a straight line across it. So I would guess they're probably in that same ballpark, but.
Yeah. As far as the lake goes, if the neighbor would have run a driveway all the way out to the road, he would have more impervious yet than what this system has.
Right,
so
correct.
The lake would probably suffer more.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what Mr. Crone was asking the question for, was if you were to take out the 1,400 square feet from the applicant's driveway and have that driveway run from the neighbors to the road instead, theirs impervious would be higher and the applicant's would be 1,400 square feet less than what he currently has right now, because he probably wouldn't have that driveway or that hardscape there.
And I believe he was talking about not physically actually doing that,
right,
but to take it out of the calculation.
He was just making that as a point.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, yep.
Okay, other questions from the board? No. All right. Is there anyone did we already ask that? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application?
One more question, sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
For the applicants, did you get any kind of a rough estimate of what the water mitigation would run? Any kind of rough ballpark?
As far as a cost on that?
A cost to do that?
They're still calculating that out because with the redesign of the catch basin, they didn't have enough time to get all the figures put together because it's kind of had to be done in 2 or 3 days.
Right, fair. Did they give you an initial estimate for the first one?
He did not.
Okay. Okay, cool.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, now anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this? All right, then I think we are ready to close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Dave Gamrot, I'll move to close the public hearing.
And a second?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone seconds.
All right, anyone not approve of closing the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and we are ready for findings. The variance request is to construct a 40 by 30 detached residential accessory structure that will result in a total of 3 accessory buildings with a total accessory building area of 1,552 square feet and exceed the maximum accessory building area allowed on a lot between a ½ acre and 0.99 acres, and to exceed the maximum impervious surface lot coverage allowed on a property zoned R1. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located.
Madam Chair, it is a R1 zone and accessory structures are allowed.
All right, we have a yes for number 1. Any additional discussion or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I'll take a shot. There's a couple of things that controls are trying to deal with here, and that's the impervious, and then also the size of the accessory structures. When it comes to the impervious, we've discussed that. I mean, with the neighbor's situation in the driveway, along with a couple of other things, I think you could approach this differently to get the impervious down, but it would end up creating more issues than it would help. I'd further add that as part of this proposal, they're looking at addressing the stormwater, which is going to help deal with the natural system side of things. When it comes to the size of the accessory structures or the square footage, one thing I think it's pertinent is looking at this neighborhood and development. The intent of that is to try to create or prevent a bunch of accessory structures from being overbuilt for the lots, in essence standing out and having these giant sheds that kind of violate the space. In this development, it kind of fits in. There's other larger garages, and so the addition of this accessory structure isn't going to stand out and violate the norm of the area.
All right. We have a yes for number 2. Is there any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes? All right. Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Mike Kane, under Lakeshore Living goals. Number 2, encourage shoreline protection and restoration methods as vegetative buffers. I believe what they're trying to do will accomplish this.
Okay, we have a yes for number 3. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, the purpose of this accessory structure is to deal with some of the other items that are currently out in the yard or being stored elsewhere and all over. I think it's reasonable to want a structure to house that on the property, keep things looking neat.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Any additional discussion, or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, I'll mark that unanimous. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Well, I'm going to say part of the uniqueness of this property is that there's a big section of driveway that is not their driveway, but that the neighbor's driveway, but it counts against their impervious surface. So I think that is a significant, part of unique circumstances for them. Is there any other comments?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I would say that it's unique because the neighbor's driveway is there, but if it was different that they would both had driveways out to the thing, the lake would suffer more than it is right now. So
Okay.
if they do the mitigation, the lake will probably be the winner.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 yeses for number 5. Any additional discussion, or anyone disagree with yes? All right, seeing none, I'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality. I'll say this, as Jason had indicated, that this shed, when you look at the neighborhood, it kind of fits in with what others in the neighborhood have. We have 1 yes for number 6. Any additional comments? Or anyone disagree with yes? All right, I'll mark that as unanimous. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I don't believe economics were part of the discussion.
All right, we have a yes for number 7. Any additional comments, or anyone disagree? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes, and we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, I make a motion that we approve the variance request to construct a 40 by 30 foot detached residential accessory structure that will result in a total of 3 accessory buildings with a total accessory building area of 1,552 square feet. With the condition that the water mitigation, the stormwater is put in place. When it comes to a financial guarantee, we don't have an estimate for that at the time, but I would say with financial guarantee of the estimated cost of that mitigation to be determined.
Madam Chair, members of the board, our recommendation is generally 125% of whatever the cost is.
Yeah. Yep, 125% of the estimated cost, or the cost of the project whenever it comes in. Yep.
Okay. And before we move any further, the applicants, do you understand what they're talking about with that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yep. Just want to make sure people don't get a surprise as to what that's about.
No, I understand that when we have it figured out, a check will have to be written to the county for 125% of that estimated cost.
Right, and then it's returned to you once the project is seen to be completed.
It's put into an escrow account.
Right.
Saved until.
Yep. Okay, just so you understand that portion of it. All right, we have a motion with 1 condition. Do we have a second to that motion?
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I'll second it. And also, I'd like to be in the record that because of this neighbor's driveway, we're not allowing something that is really against the rules as much as what it looks like, because of the neighbor's driveway really enters into this calculation.
Right. This isn't as dramatic a deviation as it may look on paper.
Right.
For this particular property.
So that's stated in the record.
All right. So we have a motion with 1 condition and a second, and I'll do roll call on the remaining members. Mike?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Motion carries. So you can go ahead with your project. And thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
I do
so
have
much.
a question. So when we receive our paperwork, that will be noted in there as our one of the deals, that, with having the money sent in.
Staff maybe could address that, but I believe, when they're sent a formal notice that's been approved.
Yeah, you're going to get a notice
Yeah.
letter. We'll be putting that in the mail probably tomorrow, and it will just state that your variance was granted with the condition that the stormwater plan be implemented and that you provide us with a financial guarantee of 125% of just the stormwater portion. The shed isn't included in that 125%. And we kind of talked about that on the phone.
And just a question for staff, is there a date stated in that letter as far as when that amount needs to be provided to the county?
So the application is, your variance application, your granting is good for 1 year. So what that means is within 1 year, you have to submit your construction site permit application to our office along with that estimate and then the financial guarantee.
Okay.
But that does have to be done before construction can begin.
Correct. Yep. Did that answer your questions?
Off question for the applicant. Are you going to put a big apron on this building?
Just a small apron just to get to the driveway, because we have to have a little bit of a setback from that driveway that's there.
Okay.
All right. I think we are ready to move on to our next item. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you so much.
All right, our last item on the agenda is to consider a request from Lee and Barbara Haugen, St. Paul Park, Minnesota, from sections 5.1.2C2, 5.1.2C3, and 10.2.11A2 of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a dwelling porch addition onto a legal non-conforming residential dwelling ahead of the established building line and within the shore impact zone of a lake classified natural environment. The said ordinance requires additions on a legal non-conforming residential dwelling to be located landward of the established building line and outside the shore impact zone of 100 feet on a lake classified natural environment. The affected property is Lot 26, Block 2 of Clearwater Harbor, Section 32, Track 122 North, Range 27 West of Linden Township, and the property address is 223 Alder Road, South Haven, Minnesota. And you are?
Good evening. I'm Lee Haugen and my wife Barbara Haugen, 1164 16th Avenue in St. Paul Park, Minnesota.
Thank you, and we'll be back to you in just a minute or so. First of all, board members, with a show of hands, how many were able to visit the site? All were able to visit, and we'll move on to the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicants currently own Lot 26, Block 2 of Clearwater Harbor. You guys are probably aware you've been to this site once before, probably 2 months ago, I believe. And so they're back. They've made some changes to their application. They've removed the section of the, and we can maybe point it out here. Thanks for putting that up, Shelley. So they've removed the deck. Where's my guy? There it is. I'm going to go over here because it's not blocked by there. So there was, originally they had proposed in their last variance request to have a deck addition here, and this addition was going to be 4 feet out. And so they shrunk that down to 3. They removed the deck from the request. They also shrunk the entryway from 48 square feet to 30 square feet, I believe, 36 square feet. And so a lot of nothing else really changed. You know, they're going to be constructing up from the floorboards there, and they're going to have a second story on it. They've had the engineered, approval of a second story on this foundation. So I'm not going to go too much into the background. You guys probably remember. I did get one correspondence with regards to this request. I believe you guys all got a copy of that emailed to you. I also emailed a copy to the property owner, as an applicant as well. Shelley, is it required that I read this if I've provided it to them, and or yeah? Yeah. So it was a letter from a Mr. Jeff Westrom. Jeff Westrom's address is 230 Baxter Road, South Haven, Minnesota. He actually lives at 230 Baxter Road, South Haven, just down the road from this property. There's a variance request before you that was applied for by Lee and Barb Haugen. This is their second attempt at receiving a variance in order to improve their property located at 223 Alder Road. I support Haugen's request, especially in the light of the fact that the first application was denied. I know that they were disappointed but willing to make some concessions to get one approved. The properties on Grass Lake used to consist mostly of trailers and campers, but over the years the property owners have invested greatly into improving homes. Many beautiful homes have been built in this area. I know you need a majority yes vote for each of these questions, and he kind of goes through his answers for these findings of fact questions as you guys had a chance to read. So I think I'll just leave it at that. Outside of that, I do not have any other correspondence. I'm trying to think if there might have been one person who wanted to be here but couldn't be here, so they were going to be here on the Zoom. I don't know if that person is on or not. I think her last name was Kramer. Do you guys know a Kramer? No? Okay. Our IT person is shaking their head. They're not on. So.
Okay.
But that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. And then we'll move on to the applicant. And just for the sake of time this evening and your time, especially since you're last on the agenda, we all, all the information that you provided to us the last time that you were here, we're all very still aware of those items. So we'll go with what's new to your application or what's changed. So if you could share with us whatever you'd like to share.
Okay. I'm on, yes. Okay, so we did scale down the project a little bit just so that we can come in front of you again. I think the concessions we made are good. We've only got 51 square feet. That is the area that's in the 100-foot square, so I know you want to understand that. And also I did work with environmental services to lay out a proposed mediation plan. I don't think I need to say much more.
All right.
Okay,
and
thank you.
If we have questions, you can certainly chime in. All right. If there are questions from the board of either staff or the applicant?
Madam Chair, quick for the applicant. We did have the Stearns County Sauk River Watershed District. I still stated that wrong. Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District. Thank you. Get it right. There's so many acronyms out here. To do the no mold buffer, and are you open to doing that along a stretch? And I stress no mow again. It would be you've got Arrowhead and different plants coming up already in that area. Is that something you'd be open to for a set amount?
Yes, actually, we did do a proposed area. She drew it on the.
I saw that. Just okay.
And no mow would be. I absolutely agree with that.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I can maybe iterate a little bit. And Shelley can probably pull it up on the maps here. It's this one, Shelley? Yep. So he has proposed a 25-foot no-mow buffer in that kind of boxed area there. So it kind of coincides with what Mr. Berg had recommended. I think Mr. Berg's recommendation was originally 30. And he did propose to have, I think Mr. Berg proposed to have it come further down here, but that is actually not where, this is not where his dock typically is represented. There's a large tree here that ate up a portion of that, and so that's why I believe the property owners or the applicants have kind of stopped right here, because you can see their dock goes out right there, and like I said, there's a large tree that eats up that. Here's a picture of the area they're proposing to do right here.
I saw those. I wanted to make sure that that was
Yep.
something you guys were cool with and I wasn't misinterpreting it. So very good. Thank you.
All right. Additional questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to
Well,
close the
first
public hearing though.
Just to be legal, I have to ask, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application? And seeing none,
I'll make my motion to close the public hearing.
all right.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing in a second. Is anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed, and we will move on to the findings. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, it's a R1 zoning district and residential construction is allowed.
All right, any other comments or anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls and any related ordinances, yes or no?
Madam Chair McCain, I believe if they go along with the no-mow buffer, it would be in harmony with our conservation of the waters in that area, and they've minimized the imprint on the lot as well with the size of the construction, so I say yes.
All right, we have a yes for number 2. Any additional discussion or anyone disagree with yes? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with a comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to cite one of my favorites here lately. It's under Lakeshore Living Policies, number 5. Actually, I'm going to go number 6. Expand mitigation requirements for projects requesting to vary from lake setbacks to preserve the riparian environment and reduce erosion to enhance the water quality.
All right, we have a yes for number 3. Any additional comments? Anyone disagree with yes? We'll mark that as unanimous. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Madam Chair, go ahead, Dave.
Madam Chair, Dave Gamrad, I say it is reasonable, and they showed that they did shrink the plan, and also that they're agreeing to the buffering of the water.
All right, we have a yes for number 4. Any additional comments? Anyone disagree with yes? Seeing none, we'll mark that as unanimous yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, it's a tough-shaped property with the angles to try to meet all setbacks and standards, being this was plotted prior to, I believe, some of the official controls. So, yeah.
All right, we have a yes for number 5. Does anyone have any additional comments or disagree with yes? All right, we'll mark that as unanimous. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality.
Madam Chair McCain, I believe, based on even one of the comments from one of the neighbors, the area is vastly improving, and I think this will help not only make the neighborhood look better, but encourage other neighbors to do the same.
And also, just to reference the second story that's put on when you look at the properties on either side of them, I don't believe that's going to affect their view of the lake or affect the neighbors really at all. So we have a yes for number 6. Does anyone disagree with yes or have additional comments? All right, we'll make that unanimous. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Madam Chair, Jason Crone, economics were not discussed.
All right. Any additional comments or anyone disagree with yes for 7? Seeing none, we'll make that unanimous, and I believe we are ready for a motion. Right, within the conditions, yes.
I'll take a shot at making the motion to approve the request for a variance to Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to reconstruct the existing dwelling up from the floor joist to add 233 square feet of dwelling addition, 83.6 feet from the overhead water level, ordinary high water level. Can't talk, it's getting late. A 507 square foot second story addition with a loft and a 30 square foot porch addition onto a legal non-conforming residential dwelling ahead of the established building line and within the shore impact zone. With the condition that the applicant's proposed vegetative buffer strip, which is approximately 76 feet by 25.2 feet, as outlined on their proposal, is also a condition that's adhered to. A no mow buffer.
Right.
No mow buffer.
Okay, we have a motion with one condition on the floor. Is there a second?
Dave Gamrod, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll do roll call for the remaining members. Mike?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So motion carries. We hope that you're going to enjoy your new home. And are you going to be able to get any of it done yet this fall, or is it all scheduled for spring?
We're hoping.
You're hoping for this?
Yeah, we were waiting, so. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
But
well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Good luck.
All right. Staff, is there anything else that you had for us this evening? No? Then we are ready to adjourn. Do we have a motion?
So move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anyone? Everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Meeting is adjourned.